And I can do this very quickly. I'll just quickly define what prevailing wage is. Okay. Prevailing wage is a price-fixing relic. This is a presentation from earlier today down at the machine shed in Appleton, the Conservative Forum. Every Tuesday they have a program, and by chance, Mike Thomas, who's on the Allegheny County Board, was talking about prevailing wage, and a couple other people also talking about it and giving examples of the problems with prevailing wage. Okay, prevailing wage, essentially a price-fixing relic from the New Deal era, dictates labor rates for publicly financed construction projects. Instead of the price of labor being determined by competitive bidding within a free market, labor rates are calculated by bureaucratic formulas. The result is artificially expensive roads, bridges, schools, and so on. And there's a long history of this going back to the 1920s when certain areas had higher wage rates than others, and they were worried that construction companies in this area would undercut and underbid the local construction companies. So it was a protective measure that if you want to bid for a project here, you have to match the prevailing wage rates here. And all it does is it drives up the cost of government projects, makes government more expensive, makes the taxpayer have to pay more for government services.
It eliminated competitive bidding against those jobs.
Yeah.
They were sponsored or paid for by the state. That's not the whole story. It eliminated competitive bidding, so it kept the price.
It gets pretty complicated because this leads to another thing called project labor agreements, also known as community workforce agreements. And this has gone back and forth over the past decades because every time a new president comes in, he issues an executive order countering the previous executive order by the previous president about to what extent federal contracts have to abide by prevailing wage laws, project labor agreements where, well, to explain what a project labor agreement is, again, I got to read you sort of a definition that is concise so that you can grasp it without having me to go on and on. Okay. Project labor agreement is a pre-hire collective bargaining agreement with one or more labor organizations that establishes the terms and conditions of employment for a specific construction project. Before any workers are hired on the project, construction unions have bargaining rights to determine the wage rates and benefits of all employees working on that particular project and to agree to the provisions of the agreement. The terms of the agreement apply to all contractors and subcontractors who successfully bid on the project and supersedes any existing collective bargaining agreements. Project labor agreements are used on both public and private projects, and their specific provisions may be tailored by the signatory parties to meet the needs of a particular project. The agreement may include provision to prevent strikes, lockouts, or other work stoppages for the length of the project. Project labor agreements typically require that employees hired for the project are referred through union hiring halls, that non-union workers pay union dues for the length of the project, and that the contractor follow union rules on pensions, work conditions, and dispute resolution. Again, it drives up the cost of projects, drives up the cost of government, and the taxpayer gets the short end of the stick. So, again, this is a rather complicated, very fluid situation because, as I say, every time a new administration comes in, a new president, new executive orders go out, and right now, I asked the people that were pushing the Right to Work campaign in Wisconsin, I said, okay, now that you've got this done, what is the next thing? And the next thing is, first of all, beating back any challenges by the labor unions in the courts to stop the right to work. And next is the prevailing wage laws. Get rid of them so that we can continue to reduce the burden on the taxpayer, make government more efficient, and so forth. Yeah.